Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about grid bots. And here grid doesn't mean greed, but rather grid as in a mesh or network. These are so-called grid bots, which you can find them everywhere, basically on any exchange, especially those that support algorithmic trading. These grid bots are everywhere, and you can set them up yourself, even though they claim to be AI or something like that. Honestly, I have no idea what part of it is actually AI. At most, it's just the adjustment of the grid size, that's it. That's all there is from AI. Everything else, you have to set up manually, picking some parameters, and in the best case scenario, they make you some money. In this video, I'll show you what it is, how it actually works, why it makes money, why it's so popular, and why it's being pushed and used everywhere. Spoiler, it's exactly because it's super easy to set up and, overall, it does make money, since it uses such simple algorithms that it's honestly mind-blowing. Moreover, I'll show you how to do this on TradingView, which lets you use this grid bot absolutely on any exchange. You can use it on the stock market, on gold, whatever you want. You don't have to trade just on something like Bybit or anything like that. So even if the exchange doesn't support algorithmic trading, basically, by using TradingView and the other videos I've made, there are plenty on how to connect TradingView to all sorts of different exchanges. You can trade with this grid bot literally anywhere. And of course, I'll give you the grid bot with open source code and everything else. The actual strategy. I'll provide it all and teach you how to use it, basically. How do you use it well to actually make money? In short, this is a complete guide to grid bots, and after watching it, you'll definitely be able, in principle, to set up and build your own grid bot, or just take mine and use it on any asset. I'd really appreciate it if you give this video a like and leave a comment to help promote it on YouTube. And feel free to join my Telegram channel if you want to chat. My name is Maxim. This is the channel Thinking Out Loud. Let's dive in and figure it out. Let's start from the beginning. What is a grid bot in general? And what skills do you need to set one up? A grid bot is, well, quite literally just a grid of a certain size, sometimes slanted, sometimes parabolic. My particular bot, for example, uses a parabolic formula, the parabolic SAR. And it's simply a set of lines that are, basically, stretched along the price. So, the ideal situation for a grid bot is an asset that just moves sideways, fluctuating, because, for example, we have 10 lines stretched out, like 10 strings, kind of like a guitar, you know, like a guitar neck. So, imagine 7 strings stretched out like that. And the price moves along these 10 strings. What happens if you buy on the lower strings? So, when the price touches the lower strings, you buy. When it touches the upper strings, you sell. Again, you buy at the lower ones, sell, then suddenly, as it goes up, you sell again, sell, buy, sell. So, what happens is you always end up with a bunch of small trades, each equal to the distance between these strings stretched across the guitar neck. That's it. That's what a grid bot is. It's a huge pile of small trades that are constantly locking in these little price movements for you. So, the smaller the time frame, the smaller the gap between the strings, the more frequently it trades. And basically, to use it properly, any grid bot at all, and they can be very different, you need to know how to do just two things. Just two things. First, you need to know how to draw channels. I made a video about that, and it will pop up here as a suggestion. So take a look at what channels are, and how to draw them so that they have predictive power, because the whole idea behind a grid bot, any grid bot, really, is that it works by predicting the channel the price will move in. Because you need to, well, you see, you need to lay the neck, the channel, the neck of your guitar like this with the strings, or like this, or even downwards. It doesn't really matter which way. You can even lay it to the right, as long as you understand that the price will move, say, for a certain number of days, months, or hours. And depending on whether you're setting it up on 5-minute charts, then it's probably hours. If it's, I don't know, on the hourly chart, then it's, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks or a couple of months, that kind of time frame. You need to have a rough idea of the range in which the price will move in the near future, and when to turn off the grid bot or reconfigure it when necessary. It's time to reconfigure the grid bot. Unless, of course, it's some kind of AI grid bot that reconfigures itself. I'll give you a regular grid bot that doesn't reconfigure itself, but still works just fine. In fact, it even makes money in a falling market. And the second very important thing you need to know is how to calculate the commission. You need to be very clear about how much money you're paying for this. Because if you set it up incorrectly, it'll just rack up a bunch of trades that will pile up drawdowns and losses for you. And when you're calculating your strategy, when you're planning how you want to do things, this is the first thing you need to understand. You need to set up your testing system so that the real parameters of the exchange you're working with match what you've configured there. Otherwise, it'll just be nothing but losses. Now, let me show you in practice how to set up my specific grid bot, the code for which I'll naturally provide. The code will be linked in the description of the video. But before that, remember, this is not financial advice. You are solely responsible for your money, and trading is bad for your health. Let's go! Look, here you see the hourly Solana chart, on which I've already drawn two channels. One was this kind of channel, and the other was like this. So, basically, an ascending and a descending channel. I'll show you how to work with grid bots in general, how to set them up and where. Basically, you can do this with pretty much any asset. Here, the chart is set to 1 hour, but really, you can set it up for any other time frame too. It's just a matter of how many settings you'll need to adjust, that's all. So let's launch a grid bot here. The code I'm going to give you is for the Grid Bot V6 strategy. We click on it, and down here at the bottom, a blue button appears, kind of light blue. It says start time and price. So, we need to click it once like this, and then just use the crosshair to point to the spot where we want to start the grid bot, well, to test it, right? Basically, right now we're just running a test. And now I'll show you why I needed these channels. Right now, I actually want to check the approximate range, to look at the parameters that will fit this asset. So, I drew two channels for this, because the grid bot is essentially a channel-based robot. So I need to place it roughly in the middle of this channel. So I place it like this, click, and it immediately offers me to set up acceleration, curves, and the interval. Well, for now, I'll just click apply with the default settings. Look what happens. It drew this grid of multicolored lines. It goes straight, and doesn't fit our range at all. It's also much smaller than our range, right? And now we actually move onto the settings of this grid bot. We click on the gear icon and figure out what these settings are all about. Look, acceleration is the speed at which the price or the channel moves. And curve is its curvature. With these two values, you can actually adjust the grid the way you need. Or rather, set the angle of the slope, the angle of attack of your channel. I'll set it up now. An acceleration of 20, and a growth of about 9 degrees was enough for us to roughly show the correct channel growth. And now, to show what a curve is, I'll bend it down a little, so it looks like it's curving downward. That means we need to set a negative curvature. Let's say 5. You see, maybe I overdid it. I should probably set it to about 3. A sensitivity of 5 is how much it will bend, whether it will curve more or less. Well, let's leave it like this for now. It's basically fine. Now you see, the level looks more or less similar, but our channel is clearly wider, right? That is, it's wider both upwards and downwards. How can we fix this? We can add more lines, in theory, so that there are more of them. But this parameter is already at its maximum. See, buy zones are 9 and sell zones are 9. So what does that mean? It means that there are only 10 lines here, and there won't be more than 10 lines. There can be fewer, but not more. And we have one red line, which is the 9th one, right, and one green line. This one is only for buying, and that one is only for selling. All the other yellow ones can both buy and sell. So, for example, if you want the bottom 3 lines to only buy, you just reduce the number of sell zones to 6. And you see, now 3 more lines have become buy-only lines. That means it won't sell at those lines at all. And, accordingly, let's set the buy zones to 6 as well, for example. So now, on the red lines it will only sell, on the green ones it will only buy, and on the yellow ones it will do both. In other words, it will trade back and forth, up and down. It's very important to understand this parameter when using this robot. For now, I'll set it back to 8 and 8. You see, the number of trades immediately increased a lot. And to widen the range a bit, because our channel is clearly wider than what's shown here, we'll change the interval. Right now, the interval, that is, the distance between these lines, is 1%. You see, it's in percent, 1%. Let's set it to 1.5, for example. There are more now, but it seems like we could even set it to 1.7. Oops, I set it to 17. See how it all flew apart? No, 1.7, period. And here we can see that maybe we shouldn't have bent this line just yet. I mean, basically, we shouldn't have bit it during the setup. So I'll turn off the curve for now. Now it looks pretty good, but maybe I just grab the top point and drag it a little higher. Now we set up this grid quite precisely, and we can see what, in general, this actually gives us. Does this give us anything? Is this a profitable setup or not a profitable setup? And to really check this reliably, we need to go to the second properties tab here and enter some real numbers. For example, let's put in $1,000. We can leave pyramiding as much as we want, and then go back to inputs. And look, here we control the lot sizes. This is the main lot for buying and an additional secondary lot for buying. Accordingly, and the lot for selling and the secondary lot for selling. If the main lots are clear, that's how much to buy and sell, right on each move. What are secondary lots? Secondary lots are lots placed against the trend. That is, for example, here we have a concept called sentiment. So basically, it's the trend. In other words, the direction the market is heading, where the market is looking, and it's set as slope for us, meaning the curves bend. So in this case, the sentiment or trend will be considered upward, meaning the market is growing. Here, we can manually set long, short, or neutral, meaning we can choose not to take sentiment into account. And slope is simply the direction in which the grid itself is oriented. But actually, I usually use the same lot size for both secondary and primary purchases, because for me, basically, whether it's with a trend or against it, well, specifically in this setup, I don't see much of a difference. But when you have a lot of green lines, a lot of red ones, that can matter. In other words, it will be less likely to make those dark triangles, meaning secondary sales and secondary purchases. Basically, when evaluating the results of the strategy, you can try it this way, that way, or any other way. So you can try it any way you like. It won't really change much. Or maybe, on the contrary, it could change things a lot. Alright, let's take a look at the performance. So, we set up the grid that was from April 25th to May 25th. That means this grid could have worked just fine for a month. And let's check its performance. We open the statistics and see 2% return with a 0.94 drawdown. So well, this is what the chart looks like. Basically, by gradually trading for just a few cents at a time, it keeps steadily going up. Why is the percentage return so small? Well, it's because our lot size is 10,000. Yeah, our capital is 10,000, but we're trading with just one lot. If, for example, we set it to 10 lots here and add extra lots of 10 each, then, as you can see, the situation changes dramatically. This way, you can quickly see whether this strategy is effective. For example, in a rising market. Yes, it is effective. You saw it yourself. Nothing super impressive, but a 1-to-3 or 21-to-7 ratio. So basically, that's not a bad return. But what happens in a falling market? As you remember, I drew two channels, so now we'll use the second channel, and then I'll explain to you why channels are even needed in all of this. And this is very important. When it's time to turn off the grid bot. There are times when the grid bot is done, you need to turn it off, sell all the assets, or reconfigure it. Because, as you can see, it only works for a certain period of time, as long as the channel exists. Let's first figure out what to do in a falling market, and whether this strategy works in a downtrend, and then we'll learn how to exit the market in time so that, well, we don't lose money. I zoomed out our chart a bit. And now we take this blue point and move it here, to the middle of this channel that's going down. Probably, we wouldn't have been able to catch it here. Well, okay, let's just put it here for now. Theoretically, what's the difference? And most likely, it will be pretty easy for us, since all these assets move quite similarly, so we'll probably just need to change the acceleration. Let's try changing 29 to -29. And let's remove the curve for now. No, that's too steep an angle. The correction is much smaller. Let's try -15. There, -15 is already better. Let's try -13. I'd even set it to -12 and pull the point down a little bit. That's it. See, I pretty much lined up the grid at the very start of the channel, set it right along the channel lines. So what does the performance show? As you can see, there's not much of a difference. Here, well, roughly speaking, it's 14% versus 5, so it's still the same 1-to-3 ratio, just a bit less. So does that mean it's like a typewriter? A damn Eldorado? Well, basically, yeah, that's pretty much how it is, actually. So why are they so popular? Why is this offered everywhere? And on top of that, there are some AI algorithms that automatically adjust the grid, turn it, tweak it for you wherever needed. Maybe that increases profitability. It's hard for me to judge. Well, at least on the hourly chart. Personally, it's easier for me to draw a channel, because that way I understand when it's time to exit, when it's time to close one grid and open another. And this is a very important point that I'm going to show you right now. Look, we've drawn a channel, and we have a breakout above the channel. So, once again, watch the video about channels that should pop up somewhere here if you haven't seen it yet. Right now, we can start thinking that this channel has ended, and again, we'll move on to a channel like this one. Accordingly, we need to start drawing some longer lines now, right? Channel lines that can help us guess where the market might move next. Here's one, and for now, our channel is still quite small. And for example, I don't know, maybe a channel like this one, a bit bigger. So right now, look, if I can always check my position. I'm not an idiot. I keep track of my positions in the market. I don't trust anyone else with my own money, and I don't recommend you do that either. So I look, let's say, my position is positive, and I understand that the channel has most likely been broken upwards and retested. So we've broken through and consolidated. And if my position right now isn't shorts, if I haven't gone overboard with shorts, if I have longs, then everything's fine. So from here, I can just wait, right? Or I can just try to flip the grid, stretch it. I don't know, upwards again. Move it over here for now, right? Temporarily move it and stretch it out. Move the acceleration upwards. You've basically seen how this is done. I've already shown you. And for example, you could try first to set it up to work in a narrow channel, or try to stretch it right away to a wide channel and see how the situation develops. If my position had been short, when the channel was broken, I would have just exited, simply closed it, and maybe redrawn the channel or waited until a new one started. But if it's a grid bot, then you need to set up the channel in advance, because your main goal is to find channels and exploit them while the price is moving within them. And now, the most important part of this video. Here's how to figure out whether this narrow, small channel, which will almost certainly move, and if it widens, you can always redraw the channel later, is worth it. Is this channel worth it, considering how many levels there might be inside? Because, well, you obviously can't fit 10 levels of 1.7 each in there. So to what extent can I compress the levels? How do I check this? How can I accurately calculate that my profitability is correct? For that, you absolutely need to specify slippage and commission. I'll show you how to do that now. Look, when testing any strategy, there are these properties in the settings, and here there's a parameter called commission. You need to understand that each exchange has a different commission. And so, if I'm working with the Finandy exchange, on average my commission for limit orders, that is, for the maker is the one who places a limit order, and the taker is the one who buys at market, is 0.02%. Since I will definitely be trading the grid only with limit orders, there's really no reason for me to rush anything here. I'll set the commission at 0.02%. And I also need to check that the price stays at the same level for at least 2 ticks, so that, it's not all happening instantly, because nothing ever happens instantly. And also set 2 ticks for slippage. Now, I guess I can take a look at the actual profitability. And as you can see, the real profitability is much lower in a falling market. That's why you absolutely need to keep this process under control. So you set up a small grid in a narrow channel and check. If you place 10 lines, the distance between them is, say, 0.5%. You need to set the actual commission. That is, you need to understand that there's a commission for both buying and selling. In other words, a round-trip trade is basically 2 commissions, and you have to take that into account. Set the real commission that your exchange charges and see. Maybe with a 0.5% grid it's pointless, and you should, for example, reduce your grid from 10 lines to just 5, so that there's still at least a 1% gap between these grid strings. This is really important. And of course, you also need a decent exchange, not one with outrageous commissions. Personally, I use Finandy. If your exchange charges higher commissions, just register using my referral link and you'll get a 0.02% commission rate for makers. That is, for users placing limit orders. And by the way, I have a ton of videos on my channel about how to connect literally any bot from TradingView to Finandy. And of course, you'll also get some tokens that you can use to pay that same commission, basically as a gift, just because you used my referral link. I hope everything was clear to you. If anything's unclear, leave a comment or join my Telegram channel. Bye!